Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L here to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 377. I actually knew what chapter we're on. Anyway, hey everyone, hope you're having a good one. You know, chapter came out on Friday, but I'm always busy right on the weekend, so Friday all the way through till Tuesday, and here we are. I'm recording this now like at 8. It was a pretty long day, but if anyone's here watching, I hope that you're having a good day, and thanks for being here. You might be noticing a lot of different things going on the screen right now. Maybe the camera quality or like something with the display. I'm just trying different stuff, and I got some new tech that I just want to see if I can incorporate. I think it might make things a little bit better, but we'll see how it goes. Thanks for being here. Very quickly, have to issue a correction. If anyone watched my spoiler video, you remember I was pretty, I was gloating, and you know, you really shouldn't let pride get ahead of you. Anyway, I was gloating. White Despair, though, was not the person that I was thinking of, and it was actually a very funny story. Ultimately ending in me having terrible memory and White Despair having great memory. So if anyone watched that spoiler video, the commenter White Despair was actually, we were on the same page the entire time. I just forgot. White Despair and I fight about a lot of other things. So that's what I was really remembering more. But even then, you know, correction issued. I apologize, White Despair. My bad. I shouldn't be so arrogant. Or, yeah, I was having fun. Anyway, we're all good. White Despair is a cool guy, and other people on the stream chat and in the comments are cool people too. So let's get into the chapter 377. It's a 14-page chapter, so it's pretty clear this is still illness time. I'm not going to judge the chapter in any like fundamental merit. Like if this was a regular week, it's like, well, there's not really a lot that happened here. Like this chapter and the other chapter kind of feel like they're just two parts of one overall chapter. But you know what, like Horikoshi still gives so much content even with reduced pages. It does slow things down, but illness, right? Like I don't care. I'm not gonna judge. I'm not gonna be harsh about this. I mean, I'll be harsh about like the content in the pages, but I'm not gonna be harsh about this. Anyway, let's get into it. The chapter. General notes I want to say. You know, whenever I come into these videos, I always look for something unique and novel that we can really talk about. And I don't mean like stuff that has to do with the story, but more the storytelling techniques that are going into it, because that's what I think is really valuable with Hero Academia. Because it has so much content, you can really pull out cool little things or cool little tricks. Now, this week, I don't think we necessarily have something from Horikoshi, but there might be something interesting when we look at the fans' translation and the official translation. And there is one particular thing that we can talk about here because it's very interesting and we don't get a chance to talk about it very often, and that is symbolism. Very quickly, if you watch anime and you read manga and you read light novels, you should not be in a position where you say symbolism is worthless, because the vast majority of anime, manga, and light novels will use symbolism because people like using symbolism because they like telling stories through different avenues. If you've ever watched Shield Hero and you saw one scene in Shield Hero where they were talking about two worlds and you saw like two fish swirling around in a bucket, that was well, it's a visual metaphor, symbolism. It's a visual metaphor for the overall state of the Shield Hero world when you see those fish in the bucket swirling around the other, how one's going to eat the other. If you read the Bleach Hell chapter, you know that chapter started off with a metaphor about the goldfish, how when one goldfish ate the other, it got to grow much bigger, even though it was initially sad how the goldfish died. That's a metaphor for the state of the world. Point is that these little things make a difference. Authors care about them, even if it's going to fly over the heads of the vast majority of people. You might be wondering, well, why is it important to talk about symbolism here? Well, it's important to talk about it because when you have a page where you start off with the sakura blossoms, the cherry blossoms, and you have like a visual metaphor being invoked, such as, due to the gap in power, achieving victory through standard tactics was as unlikely as grabbing hold of a fleeting thread. When you have that kind of stuff, it's like, you know, the visual metaphors are always there. But what we're going to be talking about has more to do with the end. And one of the particular lines, but it's important. Like visual metaphors are always going to exist there. Authors like to be artistic, and that's why they use visual metaphors. Anyway, we should get into this. So let's start with this first page. So this page was really interesting because, like, when you're looking at it, the big question people have is, whose hand is this, right? And people are wondering if this is someone in the future. And when it all, when this is an interesting situation. And I really do think this is one of those moments where maybe we should err on the side of caution and just go for the simplest explanation. And the simplest explanation is that all this stuff right now, it's happening in real time. So this isn't a flash forward. It's happening in real time. And what it ultimately is, what the page is a framing page, a framing device. It's pretty much a page just to summarize what has happened before. You might say, Trip, like, well, is that actually valid? Have we seen framing pages that bring up a random person's hand before? Like, is this actually something that Horikoshi has done? And he's done variations of it. So I'll show you another example here. I got it drawn up. Okay, so do you remember this kid? Do you remember him at all? This is just a random boy. That's all he is. He was pretty much just the guy that was there at the start of the First War. What was the purpose of this child? Well, he was looking at the All Might statue. You have him juxtaposed with the heroes. Well, there's a lot of symbolism going on here. This random kid, he's asked, hey, are you going to be okay going to school today? His mom's like, regular mom shenanigans. And he pretty much says, yeah, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go to school. And like the idea of the overall page when you juxtapose it against the heroes is that this is pretty much what the heroes are fighting for. They are fighting for the children of tomorrow. They are fighting for kids to have peace. They're fighting for kids to, be happy. That's the purpose of the page. So, and also note, cherry blossoms, right? We are again with the cherry blossoms. So one thing you might know is that Horikoshi does like using the cherry blossoms. So when you put it all together, what you really see is that actually there's a very good chance the simplest explanation is correct explanation, and all we're seeing is just a framing page. It's a framing device. There's too many elements here, and like Horikoshi has a history. The only time we've ever seen a flash forward was in Endeavor's imagination. I really don't think that this hand that you're seeing here is actually anything too significant. I'm just going to put this here because it makes it a lot easier for me to just deal with this. So that's where I'm kind of at on this page. I don't really think that it's anything significant. I think it's just a page that's here to tell us where we are in the story. And it's just, it's essentially just summing up everything that's happened so far. When you look at the merit of the line, I find it funny because you have like on this side, instead the heroes strategize to divide their foes and claim the advantage. Okay, so now, sorry. Let me just move this around so you can see the words. So evaluating this line, because this it's funny how Horikoshi frames things. Due to the gap in power, achieving victory through standard tactics was unlikely as grabbing hold of a thin fleeting thread. Instead, the heroes strategized to divide their foes and claim the advantage. This is pretty much just saying Plan A was the divide and conquer strategy. There's some things that is done with the wording that it makes it very very good. Because if they kept due to the gap in numbers instead of power here, that would have been very easy to like just kind of eviscerate a bit. Just because the heroes are always disadvantaged, so it's not so much the problem that's the gap in numbers, it's the gap in power, which makes sense. Like when you look at the strategy, really what's going on is that there's a few people that they really can't afford to let come together, those being Dabi, Toga. So this was a good way of explaining it. What I found really funny about standard tactics is that divide and conquer is such a standard tactic that every anime uses it to some degree. So this is one of those spots where like the author wants you to he wants you to feel that this idea of dividing people was a grand strategy, this dividing of the foes, when really this is one of the first things that people will go to. Divide and conquer is just too common in anime for you to say that it's not a standard tactic, but that's not actually any like real criticism of the author. This is just semantics. Authors can do whatever they want with their framing. It's just like it's funny to think that dividing and conquering is not a standard tactic. We move on. Oh, actually, you know what? There's one point here that's actually worth talking about. So, right here, you can see that the cherry blossom the old man was trying to grab kind of flew away, and that's actually a really sad image. And this is like actually one of the things that also makes me think that, like this isn't in the future. Because if this happened in the future when they live in a peaceful world, it's like, bro, your life just slipped you by. That's pretty much what this means, because like the cherry blossoms are like a symbol of a new beginning, of a new start of spring, right? So like it pretty much like the springtime of his youth just pretty much flew him by, and look where he is now, an old man. It's actually really depressing if you like just if you extrapolate this to be in the future. That's why I just wouldn't. In terms of this happening in real time, that's a little bit different. I think that's okay. Just because, yeah, this guy's life has probably passed him by. Okay, so we're on page 2 here. Now, page 2 and 3 in general, there's not a lot that's really valuable, I see, because like there's not a lot of dialogue happening. It's pretty much just, hey, watch Kurogiri come in and pretty much mess things up. So when I'm looking at this page, yeah, not too much here that I'm really concerned about. If there's one thing to note, is that you have this right here, you have the hand, so that might be important. Who really knows? I don't. It kind of depends on how they want to use that hand. I would like to get more clarification on the micro device, but we'll have to see. When we go into page 3, what you really see is Monoma getting taken down. The author does put emphasis on one particular thing, which I found interesting, just because this has been a thing with Aizawa before, where this seems to be what's going on. When you look right here, the author makes it so that the moment, it's not the moment that Monoma loses sight of him, it's the moment that Monoma blinks. So just gotta remember that with Aizawa, it looks like he can look at people, and then when he blinks, that's when the cancellation happens, even if he's not looking at the person after the initial incident. So that was just really interesting. Now, thing here with Monoma is that Monoma has shown us that he can use quirks very quickly, and he has an understanding of their natures very quickly. I am excited to see whether or not Monoma will touch twice and gain some kind of quirk, because if Monoma gains the twice double quirk, then this is just gonna be Monoma supremacy. And like, man, look, if the author wants to give Monoma another moment, then I would love Monoma taking the twice quirk. On the note of twice, it is worth pointing out that we haven't seen Twice actually say anything, which might be indicative of this being Toga. And the reason, okay, we have to be careful because he said Hawks before, but Twice is such a chatterbox that it's strange that you're not getting any kind of lines of like, oh, hey, I'm not going to attack you. Uh-oh, I am attacking you. Wow, I am so scared, except I'm not. You know, like, it's all the Twice shenanigans. You're not really seeing it here. And he's just a chatterbox that this is so far pointing to that this is Toga pretending to be Twice, or just Toga in the form of Twice. We'll have to see where exactly the author wants to go with this, but right now it's still kind of unclear. Okay, so over on this page we have a pretty cool shot here. We see that Shigaraki is molting. Just worth checking this out. So you can see the rest of Shigaraki here. So just to remember, Shigaraki has some metaphors associated to him, like him coming out of a cocoon with like butterfly wings. This is not the same thing. Izuku even calls it molting later. This is more like, you know, when something's damaged, what it does to like repair itself. It's just an aggressive repair. I wouldn't be saying that this is like Shigaraki's perfect evolution, just because this is just a repair job pretty much. Like, Shigaraki's just going to get to use his quirks now. Like, nothing really has evolved. It's just you're seeing Shigaraki unhindered by Monoma. But yeah, no, it's actually a really cool visual. I think the author did a pretty good job on it. We go into this shot here where you see that UA is being destroyed. Or not destroyed, but like a lot of the pillars are being destroyed. What I found really interesting about this shot is that it looks like there was so much destruction, but it's like, well, there's still pillars standing. And what I just don't understand is how pillars are standing when, like, man, look at that, man. That thing is so close to the ground and it got obliterated. Everything's been obliterated. How are the pillars still standing? Yeah, no, like, the redundancies in those pillars for the ones that are broken to still be able to erect a net. Like, Nezu actually is very intelligent, because the redundancies that you have to build in to make that electrical system still work, props. But, you know, the power of fiction does a lot of things. Speaking of the power of fiction, Shigaraki just did something that has enough force to break metal. Now, I don't know about you, but if you have something that has enough force to break metal, obliterate it in some places, like right here, what I really have to wonder is, yo, Bakugo is getting heart surgery right now. There is no way that boy is okay after whatever shockwave just went through them. Now, the way that you argue this is to say that, oh, the closer you are to the ground, the less the effects of the shockwave, because like you can see that the trees are still kind of there. At the same time, though, it's like Shigaraki is closest to the ground. So I feel like the explosion vector is going out in all directions. But yeah, It's, you know, he's gonna be fine, but it's pretty funny. Like, you're gonna say, oh, best Genus like blocked him, but it's like, okay, but Mirko's like quite literally on one leg. So I really want to know how everyone else survived this when like entire things of metal are falling apart. It's just funny. It's a funny little visual thing. Now, the author, I think, on this page does do something that's really important. So this line right here is actually very important, because this is where the author says, like, oh, yo, bros, I know that that page looked really impressive, but UA engineering, still amazing. It's the electromagnetic barrier is still being held up because we redundancied everything here. But yeah, nah. This was a really important line because, like, if he hadn't put this line in, it would have been like, what is the heck is going on here? How could you say this? So this is really important to know that they are operating on less functionality. Okay, so we're on page 6, and page 6 and 7, well, page 6, what you really see with page 6 is Skeptic is hiding in All for One's cave. Good to know. We see an update on the control island, and we see that the Twices are attacking. Actually, there is one good thing to point out here. You can see right here with the Twices that some of them are falling off. Or like they're actively not spilling, but they're like leaving the island. So what it looks like is that the Twices are going to be attacking the interior of the island. So if there's any heroes there to stop them, maybe Snipe is standing there with a gun or something, now would be the time to see them. But yeah, good to know that they're here. And it looks like they're taking the initiative. That entrance, who knows what's on the other side. We have to go over to page 7 now. Page 7 just shows us that Erasure is no longer active, and we see Shigaraki standing. I actually think it's a really cool design. There's a few interesting little details here, and I feel like I have to scrutinize everything. Okay, so on this page you can see the big thing of Shigaraki being right there. You can see that Kurogiri is right next to him, and then you can see that in the back, one of those towers is still gigantic, right? So, you know, I do feel like we were lied to a little bit when you see the destruction of the towers, and then you see like these ones are still standing like so tall. But whatever. Perspective's always a tricky thing. And yeah, with the Shigaraki body, just really like it's such a cool design, like a skin cape, man. Like that's so cool. I mean, gross, but so cool, man. Anyway, but Kurogiri right there, this is actually kind of scary. But Horikoshi did do something really cool afterward. But before we get there, I just love that Izuku's asking what happened at Central Hospital. Izuku, I would like to tell you that what really happened was that one person was sent after the guy that was going to bust out Kurogiri. Nothing else was in the way of the guy that was going to bust out Kurogiri. And then Shoji was just decided to make a statement and stand in front of the hospital with all the other people instead of like immediately sprinting the moment that he saw that those guys weren't going to be doing anything. So yeah, no, like a lot of failures is what really happened over at Central Hospital. But hey, like Shoji's fine. He got to be a Buddha. Now, I really can't leave the page without pointing out that this guy right here is still recording. I'm pretty sure that as long as this guy is still recording, everything's going to be just fine. Like, I'm not going to lose hope until this guy stops recording. Because when this guy stops recording, that's when you know that he knows that this is, like, there's no point in continuing the documentation of this. Because villains don't care. But yeah, no, that's page 6, page 7. The biggest thing from the page is really Kurogiri is right next to Shigaraki, and that can go anyway. Okay, so this is one of those lines where I really just love it. What you ultimately see here is what's tearing away is he shedding his skin, he's not moving, and you have really what's really cool is just these little like sound effects. So that's what Izuku was pretty much hearing. Now in the fan scan they said molting. Here they use shedding skin. That's, you know, that's good. Point is, like, the shedding skin process associated with reptiles, they shed skin to like get rid of damage or whatever. In this case he's getting rid of damage. I'm pretty sure they come out with a fresh coat of scales or whatever. I should probably look up reptiles now that we're kind of going towards that area. Anyway, damage repaired. Izuku understand what's going on. We go into this next spot where we're being told, like, hey, if it's me here now, me, and this is one of those spots where we lose the Japanese meaning. When he says me, he says it with the pronoun that Shigaraki uses, not the one that All for One uses. Really unfortunate that we lose out on this. I think the only other way to tell that Shigaraki talking is that you have to look at what would you want to do, because that slang is not what All for One would use. So I think that might be an extra conscious effort on the translator, try and like convey that this is Shigaraki talking. The problem is that when you're going in towards like the 80% All for One, 20% Shigaraki persona, the one that's neither both of them, it kind of goes into slang as well. So this just, it's unfortunate, you know, it's unfortunate that some of the beauty of the Japanese language cannot be replicated in English. We have this flashback, and I'm pretty sure this is the moment when Izuku asked Shigaraki if he was there. So that's what Izuku is remembering, and the author puts that in there just to make, just to like, just so people understand what exactly Shigaraki's calling back towards. I like this line in particular where Izuku says that's a Shigaraki persona, because there's multiple personas in the body. Again, like, I think the dialogue for the chapter is really, really tight. Also, Shigaraki, people got really excited to see Shigaraki back, but like when I see Shigaraki like just gloating in front of Izuku and just like obviously taunting him, I'm thinking like, Shigaraki, you are such a loser. Like, you're the kind of guy that consistently has been used your entire life. Even when you think you're not being used, even when you think you're like making a choice to like get your little surgery, you're still being used. You are so easily used. And the best thing about Shigaraki is that he has no self-awareness about this. He just keeps going, and he just sets himself up to get more used later. Like, again, Shigaraki is the kind of character that stands on the shoulder of giants and then says, I am a giant. That's how I see him, just because of like this kind of behavior. I would be a lot more concerned if I was in his spot right now, instead of still taunting the one guy trying to help you out. But you wouldn't be a villain if you weren't self-destructive. I really shouldn't be complaining. We should all be thankful for self-destructive villains, because like self-destructive villains, or like, it's their self-destructive tendencies that ultimately allow the heroes to beat them with Shonen Jump. Okay, so we go over to Skeptic, who's having the time of his life. Naturally, UA's system was doomed to fall to his skills. What I really want to come down on is this: even their subterranean evacuation system is putty in my hands now. In one of the previous chapters, we saw that Skeptic, it looked like he was sending something towards UA, or like sending something towards the shelter. Yeah, the shelter. The timeline here is just a little bit confusing for me. I wonder, did he have good enough control to send something over, or was he waiting to send something over? Because it just feels like he got control of the subterranean evacuation system right now instead of earlier. Yeah, him also saying that the ignorant masses are gonna perish in the name of liberation. I really hope he's not sending a payload to the shelter. But I assume that Nezu would have accounted for that, because it's like, why not, right? In this panel, you just see the first moments where something is not correct. So like, Horikoshi's just setting up for Labrava's arrival. And then we have actually a pretty good line here. So the line I actually want to point your attention to is this one right here. I need to keep an eye on Kurogiri. That's a really good one. When we were looking at the spoilers, it was pretty much a matter of like, oh, Kurogiri could potentially help Shigaraki escape here. But what the author essentially does by saying that he needs to keep an eye on Kurogiri is that he's pretty much opened the possibility that Kurogiri might actually help Shigaraki escape. Like, this might actually be something that's worth considering happening, which I just find to be cool. I just find it to be cool. I like that he points it out there. So when the author brings this up, it's like, okay, you have to keep in mind that this could happen now. And then, as fans, you gotta ask, well, why exactly would Shigaraki want to escape right now? Well, you could come up with any number of reasons. Kurogiri might just flat out tell Shigaraki, like, hey, bro, you got fatigue. Maybe we should just back up real quick and go back to where All For One is, or just regroup. No need to continue being separated here. Kurogiri might just try to move Shigaraki out of combat, because we also don't know Kurogiri's bias on this one. We don't know if Kurogiri's protective and he's going protective defense, or if he's going to go protective offense. So this is good. What it ultimately does is that for those who can't make the connection that Kurogiri might help Shigaraki escape, the author puts it out there for you, so you can keep that in your mind. He might also be setting that up to just be giant a misdirect. So ultimately, I like that he has Izuku acknowledge that possibility. Oh my gosh, we are at the final pages. Alright, so we find out the blowback from the powered up gear shift quirk. When my cells don't get a second to rest, my body can't get enough oxygen. Awesome. I should clear this up a bit. I also like how the second user is just the worst taskmaster. Anyway, it's interesting. My cells don't get a second to rest, my body can't get enough oxygen. Just really interesting. Not the worst drawback I've ever seen. It's like, yeah, like Izuku's kind of like dry drowning, but actually no, it's not dry drowning. He's just suffocating. He's suffocating, but he's still able to stand, so this is not the worst. So the next panel we see here, or the next set of panels, is really important, because it tells us specifically that he can't manipulate the flesh that he's possessing. It's just good to get the confirmation that, yeah, the reason that Shigaraki is out there right now is because All for One is trying to keep everything together, and that's why Shigaraki is slipping out. What it really means is that if All for One gets enough power to take control again, then it's going to be back to him. So it's just pretty much, let's take out Shigaraki while All for One is busy. And here's where we get to the really interesting part. Now, in the fan scans, they originally said, instead of the chain of events leading to this moment will be your power, they had said that the seeds that you have sowed, some of the seeds that you have sowed will begin to sprout, right? And you might not see the difference between those two things, but there's two fundamental differences. One is that the chain of events leading to this moment is actually very neutral. It doesn't actually implicate Izuku in any particular way, because Izuku is just part of it. Whereas the seeds that you have sown is specifically saying that Izuku's actions are going to lead into something. So I actually like the more neutral position here, because it does change the argument just a little bit. Yeah, I know, semantics, but the devil's in the details when it comes to words. So I like that they made the change. Now, the second thing, though, is that the seeds that you have sprouted is a visual metaphor. There is symbology there. If you had a series that was predicated a lot on seeds and sprouting and trees, like the cherry blossom, taking away the seeds from the metaphor ultimately impacts the overall themes and the overall symbology that is present in the series. That's what's actually really interesting when we're looking at it on that level, is that I'm curious if the Japanese actually says seeds. Because if it says seeds, well, right there, the translator ultimately takes a little bit away from Horikoshi's messaging. But the thing is, like, I don't think there's too many seeds. I don't think there's too many botany critical symbology in Hero Academia, like, because like Horikoshi's a little bit wishy-washy with his use of the cherry blossoms anyway. Like, he's a pretty casual user of symbology and visual metaphor. So, you know, with Hero Academia, making the choice to switch it to chain of events and make it something more mechanical as opposed to something more natural, I don't think causes too many thematic issues or too many issues with the symbology of Hero Academia. Again, though, it was just really cool to point it out. I'm very curious as to whether or not the original Japanese had seeds in the metaphor, because that's a little bit different than a chain of events, right? Actually, yeah, it's mechanical versus natural, right? And that is a pretty cool to see how fundamentally different that could be. Yeah, heck, even across translations, very fundamentally different. Again, this would only be a problem. This kind of change would only be a problem in a series that heavily relied on its symbology and visual metaphors. So, Hero Academia, because it's too casual with it, it doesn't really cause a big problem. Whose work would actually be problematic if you like went in and you tried to mess with the symbology? If you were careless with the localization, I want to say Bakemonogatari, but I'm not too sure. Any series that's based on a Shakespearean play might be a problem too if you did that. Any series that involves contracts with devils and you have like a really, really clever author might be a problem to do that. But Hero Academia, again, too casual to like really be bothered by it. Anyway, we find out that Labrava finds Skeptic. I love Skeptic's face here. We have Labrava saying that this is all for Gentle's sake. We also see that she has the label former crime clip uploader villain. So former villain. Pretty much they got a plea deal. They got a deal. Like those guys wanted to help Gentle, and they knew that Labrava had a lot of gifts and talents. Gentle is going to be making a return. We got the Labrava thing here. I'm happy. We saw this coming. We knew it was only a matter of time. The moment Skeptic came up, it was like Labrava is going to be here. Now, just a very quick thing, and I want to thank White Despair for reminding us of this. Skeptic's one great failure is that we don't know if this is the great failure, but it probably is. One time Skeptic's company got hacked. I'm pretty certain it was Labrava. So I think what we're going to see here is the conclusion for Labrava's character and Skeptic's character. Don't know when exactly it'll happen, but it's pretty much Labrava is the person who's responsible for Skeptic's one failure in life. And I'm happy. Well, that's the bet. But it's like, I feel like it's a very certain bet unless Horikoshi wants to be subversive on this one. We'll see. Overall, very happy to see Labrava. I know some people are saying that maybe Gentle's going to go in and try to save Yue from falling from the sky. I just want to remind people, Gentle's power is that he makes things elastic, or he makes, actually, yeah, the air elastic. Yeah. Actually, no, he makes things elastic because he made, like, he made those rebar elastic. Anyway, you know elastic potential energy. Like if you stretch an elastic, you're giving it more power. I'm just saying something falling with a lot of power or a lot of gravity behind it, a lot of acceleration due to gravity. That thing's gonna hit that elastic, and that elastic's gonna deform. And when that elastic snaps back, it might not be a great moment. But we'll have to see how exactly Horikoshi does it. He could do it if he fudges the science. We'll have to see. But overall, that was chapter 377 of Hero Academia. I think it was solid. I personally enjoyed it. Labrava came back. Yeah, no. Again, I really can't stress enough how tight the dialogue is. I think every spot that was questionable, Horikoshi had dialogue that justified it. So again, he's showing how paranoid he is, and I always say paranoid, but I say it lovingly, but also like the degree to which he scrutinizes his own pages, the degree to which he goes, like this is there's a mindset that leads to that, right? Like this is a very, very conscious author when it comes to what he's doing. He's aware, like he's the kind of person that if he did something stupid and he notices it, he's going to be aware of it, and then it's always a question of whether or not he's going to tell the readers about it. Because like every time you tell the readers that you've acknowledged that something is stupid, there's a chance that the readers hadn't noticed it yet, so you don't want to acknowledge it because you want to keep the air of mystery and surprise, right? And mystique for the series. Anyway, yeah, man. Overall, that was chapter 377. I really enjoyed it. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. Oh, I will be doing videos for the new opening and the new ending and the old opening that I forgot to do, or I did it, but the video didn't work. Anyway, I will be doing that, and I will be uploading them eventually. Just stay tuned. I'm very delayed. Not sure if you can tell, but yeah. Till next time, everyone. Have a great day.